Hello, hello, hello. Hey, hey, hey. Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm Hannah. I was like, which way am I pointing? We've got Reese back for round two for another reading sprint. Thanks for hanging out, my friend. Today was kind of one of those, or I should say this week was one of those weeks where I'm like, all right, like I get it. I'm very, very much immersed in the Bridgerton universe right now, as many, many people are right now. But I want to make sure that I'm like carving out specific time for this challenge. It's exactly like what it's for. I'm like, all right, I have read 4 books in the Bridgerton universe. I think it's time to get back at the challenge. So I picked out my books for May, and I was thinking we could kind of get started by chit chatting about what we both picked for May, and then of course we'll read and hang.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, cool. If anyone is unfamiliar with the diverse baseline reading challenge, this is the second reading sprint we've done for it. So if you want to see more creators who have joined the challenge, but also kind of meet the hosts, if you will, you can watch the first round of sprints. I had both of the hosts joining us that time. This was a little bit more last minute, plus it gets busy. Life is busy. So it's just me and Reese today. But if you want to kind of hear more from them and in their own words about what the challenge is about, you can watch those reading sprints. But I've also linked all of that same information down below. So you can read about the challenge there. You can follow the hosts that created the challenge, both Margherita and Brittany. And you can also subscribe to their email newsletter, which I feel like is kind of the best way to just stay regularly informed besides their social media. Plus, it's also just like a good reminder to get it back in your inbox. And then what else? I think that's kind of like the good overview. The challenge itself is created so it is to support BIPOC authors all year round. So it's not one of those challenges that, you just do once or for like a couple weeks at a time or for a month period. It's intended to go throughout the entire year. And each month, the hosts have created a series of prompts. So there is 3 prompts per month?
Three.
I think 3 prompts per month, and each prompt is different. So you choose a book for each of those prompts that is written by a BIPOC author. And then the goal is this is your baseline for what you read each month. So you're at least reading 3 books a month, maybe depending on how your reading goals go. But it creates a baseline for you so that you make sure you're incorporating these BIPOC authors into your TBR every month. All right, that was a really long and fast spiel. Anything to add, Reese?
No, I think you got it.
All right. I was like, I feel like I've done that part a few times now, so I'm like, I will just word vomit it quickly. But
It worked.
yay! All right, why don't you tell everybody what the May prompts are and share yours, and then I'll share mine.
Okay. I've already completed all 3 because I've gone ham this month on reading, like I do every month. But A was a book by an East Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander. B is a book by a Desi or South Asian author, and C is with a teenage main character. So for A, I've done a lot in A. I read the entire Greenbone saga by Fonda Lee, plus the 2 novellas in that series.
Wait,
So that's
Fonda
Jade
Lee
City.
is that the book that's like the Wizard of Oz one? Do you know what I'm talking about? That is font, or that's a different book they wrote.
That's maybe a different one.
It
Because
has
it's
like
not
a
this one.
cover. No.
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Is it this one you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is... Oh, that's the series I read.
Okay. I heard
There's...
it's really good.
Yeah.
Oh no, frozen for me. Maybe they'll come back. Uh-oh. Reese, you're frozen for me. I'm gonna try pop you in and out. Okay, let's see if that fixes it. Oh no. Oh no, Reese, where are you? Okay, we'll wait for When I see his screen start moving again, maybe it died, but I can see him down below. So when he comes back, I will pop him back on and I'll have him continue sharing what he's reading for the diverse baseline. I'll just jump in then. Okay, so May prompt A was the book by an East Asian, Native Hawaiian, or Pacific Islander author, and I think Reese is back. I guess we can go prompt by prompt together. Maybe that's the fun way to do it. Hello, welcome back.
Yes, I don't know what happened. My Wi-Fi must have gone out for a second.
Honestly, I have bad Wi-Fi too, so I was like trying to figure out if it was me or you, and then I was like, I think it's you this time. It'll probably be you later.
It's definitely me because this room is not the best.
It's okay. It looks beautiful.
Yes, it's great, but yeah,
so
Wi-Fi.
For prompt A, you read the entire series by Fond du Lis?
The entire series, and then there's 2 novellas in that world as well. One of them is a short story collection with 4 stories that were set before the beginning of Jade City, and then there was one that's a standalone that's in the same world, but you don't see. I don't think you only see a few characters from the series, but it's also before the start of the series, I think. So there's that. I read.
I'm guessing it was good then if you read the entire series.
All of them were 5 stars.
Okay.
And I've also read 2 other books that work for this prompt. The Order of the Pure Moon Reflected in Water by Zen Cho. It's very hard to see the cover.
Okay.
And then one more is The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart.
Ooh, I've seen that one around. It looks cool.
Yes. And the one that I'm going to be reading today is the sequel, The Bone Shard Emperor. So, very excited.
That's super cool.
And that's all for so far in A.
For A. I was hoping that my library hold was going to come in. Sorry, I feel like I'm about to sneeze. So if that happens, it happens. But I'm like, if you wonder why I'm making this face, everything else is fine. I just think I might sneeze. But for this particular prompt, I really wanted to do the audiobook of Yellowface by, I guess technically on Yellowface, she goes by Rebecca F. Kwong.
I think so.
Because I think for her fantasy, she does the R.F. Kwong. But I've heard it's narrated super, super well. I've listened to a different audiobook by that narrator and like devoured it. And like, I'm trying to discover who my favorite narrators are and like kind of make a little list right now. But I'm still like 10 weeks out on that. So I think I'm going to swap it out since I'm very much back in my romance era. Not that I'm ever not in my romance era, but like the whole like Bridgerton spark just like made me want to eat up romance and really enjoy it again. This book I've heard really good things about, How to End a Love Story by Yulan Kwai. It's new, so I don't know too much about it, but I don't really want to because it's a romance, so I'm not gonna like share a synopsis or anything because I don't want to like spoil it for myself. It's like watching a movie trailer for me. But the thing that like sold me on this one is I do know she's a screenwriter. So she's written for like TV and Hollywood. So I'm like, it's gonna be good. You know, she's a good writer. And then I believe she's the screenwriter for Emily Henry's adaptation that's going to come out. Like there's some sort of Emily Henry connection. And I like Emily Henry. I haven't read all of her stuff yet. But I'm like, all of these things are like great things about it. So I'm excited. Oh, and it's a Reese's Book Club pick. So I'm sure it's great. So I think I'm swapping this one out for A. And it's also like not too long. And I don't want to start anything long. I'm just like not in the mood right now. Like I want to burn through books. Like that's the energy. Like I'm just loving reading and I want them to be quick. All right. Prompt B, what you got?
The book by a Desi or South Asian author. Once again, I've read 2 so far. One of them was Dauntless by Eliza A. Bonin. My screen is not. Oh, there we go. That's the cover.
Ooh.
A few people have talked about it nonstop, and so I finally broke down and read it. Very good.
Are you usually a fantasy like reader or not really? Okay.
Fantasy is my favorite genre.
Okay. I was trying to remember because I feel like you do read everything. Like I always read you trying different things, but I feel like you get like really excited when you talk about fantasy.
Fantasy is definitely the favorite.
Yeah, you can tell. Like I feel like you like light up talking about it.
And then the other one for this one I've read is If They Come for Us by Fatima Asghar. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a poetry collection. I found it was fine. The
Okay.
cover is very pretty, but not everything's a hit.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let's see. I have under at the bottom of my stack, This Book Won't Burn by Samira Ahmed. I'm trying to also like prioritize some of these new releases I have on my shelves. So like, double whammy this challenge. But this book is very interesting because I know it's kind of all about book banning, and it kind of like dramatizes it in a good way to make you like think about the consequences of book banning in a different way. So I'm very intrigued by it, and I know it's YA, but I don't know too much about that. They consider it a social suspense novel, which I feel like gets me hyped about it because it's not like just like, I shouldn't say just a fiction story, but like when you're like, oh, okay, like, yes, we do want to talk about banned books, but I also don't want to like have it be like super educational. Like, I like the fact that like it's educating you through fiction, and I find that really enticing. So I'm very excited about that one. Sounds cool. I've heard good things too. All right, prompt C.
The teenage main character. Dauntless also worked for that. That's a YA, but the other one I read is The Kindred by Alicia Dow. This is like a sci-fi. I think in the book they're technically called aliens because they visit Earth when they're trying to escape being charged with murder or something. Yeah, I don't want to give it away that much, but they're technically called aliens in the book. But another one I want to read this month is Blood Debts. I really want to get to this one.
That looks cool.
Yeah.
I feel like my fantasy era is like next. Like, I miss it. It's been a while, and I feel like it's been like a while since I've read like a full series too. So I think I'm gonna like give myself a challenge to read like a full series. We'll see. Okay, for me, I am gonna read a book by an author that I've read before, but not I haven't read any of their like recent stuff. I read some of their stuff years ago, but it's Sajni Patel, and this is called A Drop of Venom. So it's kind of like I guess this is like fantasy. There's like literally monsters. I don't know what I'm talking about. So I don't know too much about it. I think it might be a retelling. I do know I love her writing, and I've read her YA before. I have her other two romances here. They don't work for this particular prompt. They could work for, there's other prompts they would work for, but she is just like one of my favorites. I don't know. I just really love the way that she writes. I got to do a like panel years ago where I moderated it, and she was on there, and I just became obsessed with her and like the way that she writes, and I need to get back into her books. So this is the most recent one. It gives me kind of Disney energy, and I'm hoping that like it's a bit darker than that, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I hope this.
Well, it's that Rick Riordan's Presents title, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's under Disney, so it would make sense if it does.
Yeah. See, I don't really know too much about like his imprint. Like, I knew that it was like a big deal that she wrote this under that, but like I don't know much more about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, looks cool though. So that's probably what I'll read. It's not incredibly long. I mean, it's like a tall book, so like it's not short, but I don't know. I'm hoping to get to it, but I also might end up swapping this one out. We'll see. I don't know. I don't know what my mood is right now. I can't decide. But I guess this one technically is also a teenage character. We could do some rearranging if we need to. I can't stick to these TBRs. It stresses me out. Like, I have to sometimes move stuff around. Okay. Which one are you reading today? Do you know?
The Bone Shard Emperor. I'm just getting my bookmark ready. This cover.
Oh, that's cool. It's giving like a better version of those Alexandra Bracken book covers. You know what I'm talking about? It has like a similar fantasy energy, but I like that one more. It's cool.
Yeah, this is a long book. This one is, wait, how long? 500 something.
So you'll be done with it by next break. You read so fast.
I do. 545.
It's chunky. It's chunky. You're never
Yeah.
intimidated by like the long books, though.
Not
I don't
anymore.
like it. Yeah. Is that kind of something you think you? I wouldn't say like practice, but I guess like the more you're reading them, like now you're less
And
apprehensive.
also helps that before like 2017, I'd say all I did was fantasy. I could not do anything real world unless it was like urban fantasy or contemporary fantasy where it had that element. But before that, nothing in the real world. No romance, no contemporary. So having that also definitely helps with keeping my attention in these longer books.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think I think like reading fantasy is almost like a skill that you need to learn and you need to like continue to, it's like muscles or something where you have to like continue to do it because I don't read as much fantasy now and then when I try to the world building is so hard for me sometimes and obviously it depends on the book and the series but it's definitely a lot harder for me now than it used to be and when it comes to like wars and battle scenes, like my brain is just like gray mush. Like I do not know what's going on. And the audiobooks you'd think would help, but they only make it worse for me because then I completely zone out. So I need to like maybe start with a more like easy to read fantasy. Yeah. I'll come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm gonna start here because romance brain. I need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think this is their pick this month, so that's kind of fun to like stay timely. I'm not usually very timely, so we're trying our best out here. Why don't we read until the hour, like on the hour, and then we'll come back, talk about what we read, and I'll probably make up some more questions to ask you.
Okay.
Okay, deal. Let's go. There we go. And if you are joining in, feel free to let us know in the comments what you're reading. We would also love to know what you guys are reading. All right. Happy reading, friends. See you in a few. And time. Let's see. Let us know in the chat how you guys did, what you're reading. One said who just found out about the challenge today, so welcome. I am not one of the hosts. I'm just hosting the sprints. So the hosts are linked down below and all the info. It's an annual challenge. I feel like it's one of those challenges where you can really make it your own. It has 3 prompts per month, but if you're just finding it now and you know yourself, you're not gonna have time to read the backlog of books. You could just start in May. If you know you love to read a lot, you could definitely go back and read all of the prompts before May. I mean, there's no really set rules for that type of thing. It's just about finding new BIPOC authors and supporting them and engaging with their work. And ironically, you're reading Funny Story by Emily Henry, who we were just talking about. So I read the back of the book when we got started because I wanted to make sure I was right. So she's this author, Yulin Kwong. She is a screenwriter and director, so not just the screenwriter. And she's doing both Emily Henry's People We Meet on Vacation and Beach Read. So she's doing both. That's super cool. I like this little quote here. It says she was once fired from a Hallmark movie for being too hip for Hallmark. I feel like that's like the best compliment you could get. Like if you're too hip for Hallmark, you're doing something right. So I thought that was cool. I'm really liking it. Like she's a good writer. I mean, shocker, right? But within the first 2 pages, you find out like the story starts, they're at a funeral and it's her sister's funeral. So her sister ended up tragically passing away literally on page 1. I'm not going to like give you any spoilers beyond chapter 1. But page 1 you find out her sister died because she stepped in front of a car, and we don't really know like whose fault it is. I don't know if that's ever going to be revealed, but we find out that the person who hit her obviously did it on accident. Like it was an accident on both sides, but he was also someone in high school. And so he comes to the funeral and like they're like, why are you here? Like they just hate him because they don't want to see him because of kind of what he represents now. And then it jumps to the future. They're adults, and now those two are like reconnecting as adults. Some forced proximity, some work circumstances, and I mean, it's obviously a romance, so I'm assuming they'll fall in love, but like they hate each other. Like this, well, she especially hates him, I should say. So it actually does give like a real enemies to lovers. Like there is not any good feelings, at least on her side right now. So I really like that. And I like the fact that like it's like the opposite of a meet cute, you know? Like that is a good way to meet someone. And I don't know, it's interesting. I feel like I've never like read anything with that kind of a premise. So I feel like with romance to get something like different like that, that's like kind of refreshing. And I don't know. I got to page 73, so I'm like breezing through it, and I'm very much invested already. So I like it a lot already. How did you do? What's your book about?
I got 43 pages in, and this is the sequel to The Bone Star Daughter. So it picks off basically right where Bone Star Daughter left off. And so can't really talk about spoilers, but it,
I mean,
it grabbed my attention.
Like a review of the series or the first book.
The first book is it has how many POVs? 3, maybe 4. But the main character out of all of it is named Lin, Lin. And she's the daughter of the emperor, and they use this magic. What is it like? It's obviously bone. It's like I don't know how they describe it in the books. It's hard to describe, but it's like bones in people, like bone shards they take out, and that's the magic that they have.
It's creepy, but cool.
And so the first book is basically Lin and the emperor's like adoptive son, kind of vying for who's gonna turn out to be the next emperor. and like they have to get these keys from the emperor to learn more about the magic and the emperor and the empire and all the different islands, because this is like set in an island world.
Oh.
So it's kind of hard to show, but this is the map, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of islands.
Oh.
And
So there's
so,
gotta be like ships and
sort
some
of,
story.
yes. But yeah, so they have to learn all of that. They have to vie for who's going to be the next one, and then there's a big twist at the end, and it makes you want to pick this one up right away. And I wanted to, but I didn't have it. So now that I do, it's definitely catching the attention, even though
Nice.
I'm reading it slower because I don't have the audiobook on. If I had the
Mm,
audiobook on, it would be going faster, but I don't want to deal with the headphones and then disconnecting them and whatever. So,
yeah,
but yes,
the fuss of it all.
yeah,
Do you typically listen and read at the same time with your fantasy, or like how often?
it depends.
Yeah.
For some of them, like for the first book in this series, I just did the audiobook, even though I have it on my shelf.
Mm-hmm.
For like another book, I just finished one, A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. That one was mainly audiobook, but I did read physically for like the first 100 pages, and then I did the audiobook and I got hooked because one of my favorite narrators is in it. Natalie Naudis is her name. She's great.
Okay.
She's one of my favorites. Um, but yeah, it depends on the series. Like Jade City,
Mhm.
that entire series I did an audiobook, even though I had the physical copies with me. So it
Mhm.
depends on the narrator and the story, whether I want to read it physically with my eyes, if that will help me more, or audiobooks,
Yeah.
which right now audiobooks wins.
I think too, yeah, like there's a big, I don't know, it's very like who you prefer narrator wise. Cause like if you're not going to vibe with that narrator, you're going to have to like physically read that whole series then. Cause
Yep.
usually they stick with their narrators too. Interesting. Oh, I thought of the question I was going to ask you when I was reading. I was like, all right, what am I going to ask for you center break? So my question was, so I've been lately, like, I always kind of shit post on my Instagram stories and like ask random questions, share random things. Like, it's always just like a hodgepodge of like memes, personal information. Just my stories are literally wild every single day, all over the place. But one thing I thought of recently, because I've worked in marketing for years upon years, is, and now I interact with more authors, and I was like, maybe I'll start like sharing advice when I randomly think of advice, because even if like one person wants to hear it, like that's cool. And my like little hot tip that I had shared that came to my like front of mind was, I wish when you went to an author's profile, they had like pinned to the top, one of their pinned posts was a photo of them, so you see what they look like, because we never know what authors like realistically look like. They don't like ever look like the back of their books anymore, because usually they're like old photos or their makeup super done, or it's just like not super realistic. So it would have like a photo of them, but in that photo, if like they only had one book, for example, they could just hold it. But if they had like multiple, you could like just put the pictures of the cover like around their head. So then that way quickly you're like, oh, okay, well, their recent grid, like they're all promoting whatever their recent release is, but I forgot they wrote that series. Now I really want to read it, because I feel like so often like an author doesn't promote their old work anymore, and then you don't even realize like it's the same person. So long story, backstory there. But then I was trying to think of like what would be the equivalent for us, the readers, the non-authors. Like what would we put as our pinned post? And I guess it's some sort of like meet the reader bookstagrammer thing. But I haven't fully fleshed out like what that would look like. But a lot of people suggested that the reader would put some of their like always recommending books. So kind of like the books that represent them as a reader. Maybe it's nostalgic, maybe it's personal to the story itself and your own story. But I started thinking about it and I was like, I wonder like if you could be like, oh, if I could recommend anyone to read this one book, or if they thought a book and thought of you, you would be like, hell yeah. Like what are like the Reese books, That's the question. That was a very long backstory to get there, but I felt like it needed the context.
Yes. Obviously, number one is always going to be Seven Devils
Okay.
by L.R. Lamb and Elizabeth May. Um, on my Instagram, in my bio, it's going to be hard to see, but I do have. Oh, and the last line says Seven Devils number one fan. So I think that's very obvious. Number one. I did one post where I did like 23 of my favorite books when I turned 23 this year. Um, so like other ones in that list, I have it up so I don't forget any of them. But like some fantasy books other than or sci-fi and fantasy other than Seven Devils is To Cage a God by Elizabeth May, Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. I didn't read that by this time, but that's another one that I'll add. The Falconer by Elizabeth May. Obviously, Aiden Thomas, Cemetery Boys, and the Sunbear Trials.
I knew you were. That was the like what one that I think of when I think of you.
Yes, that one. I need to reread Cemetery Boys because I've only read it once, and I read it
Mm-hmm.
in one sitting, like what October 31st / November 1st of like 2021 or 2020. I can't remember when it came out.
I don't.
Um, but I read it in one sitting. Like I remember staying up until 4 a.m. finishing it.
That audiobook too was like I remember getting goosebumps listening to that audiobook.
I didn't do the audiobook. I need to do it though because
Good.
I tried doing the audiobook once to reread it. And at the time, I didn't like the narrator. But
I
now that I've
honestly
read,
don't love the narrator, but like I remember getting to a point where like it stopped bothering me because in the beginning I wasn't a huge fan of them, but by the end of the book, like I just forgot. But I remember like there's some like really wild scenes at the end of that book, and I just remember being like,
yeah,
anyway.
I'm trying to see what other ones they've narrated because I know I've read one.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they did Self-Made Boys by Anna Marie McLemore. That's another one that would be on my list of always recommending. Um, Lake Lore, also by Anna Marie McLemore. I didn't know they did that one, but that's another great book. And then the other one's an SMP title. Okay. Other ones in contemporary, obviously, I just said Self-Made Boys and Lake Lore. Most Ardently by Gabe Kolnovoa. I'll say that again because I think I brought that up last time
You
in one of
might
those
have. That sounds
questions.
familiar. Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, one of them was like your most recent favorites or whatever, and mine were all Gabe Kolnovoa. Romance. Number one romance will always be A Lady for a Duke by Alexis Hall.
Okay,
Um,
so I need to read that. That's like one of those books where you're like, why the hell haven't I read it already? I did the audio book for, I don't remember this title of this book because my brain gets it confused with like a million other titles. The most recent one that's like 10 things something. You know what I'm talking about? I have it.
I have about 10 things that never happened. I have that on my shelf.
I listened to the audiobook and that was one of the ones where I was like, this is like a new favorite narrator for me. I don't think I've ever laughed so hard listening to like a romance audiobook. It has like the funniest like meet cute beginning, and then like the sense of humor of the main character is just so goofy. And if anyone's ever watched the show Superstore, for some reason this book and like the setting of it reminds me of Superstore and also kind of that humor. It's so good. But then I read that and I was like, oh, that's the same author. By those two covers, I would have never guessed that's the same person because they're completely different vibes. But I need to go back and read that.
Yeah, A Lady for a Duke is 100% my favorite romance book of all time. The only one that's like second place, that's almost first place, is Angels in the Dark by Shannon Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
It's an indie release, and I always say that I helped write one character because I did, Jay. That's the cover. This one beside
Yeah.
Angels or Lady for a Duke. I always say that I helped write Jay because I did, and Shannon is one of my friends now because of helping her write Jay because he's a trans man, and she
Yeah.
wanted to get it right because she's obviously a cis woman. Um, but yeah, Angels in the Dark is another one that's like
That's
everybody
super,
needs to read it.
super cool. I didn't realize you did that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then also the audiobook for Angels in the Dark. that has sound effects. So if you like sound effects in audiobooks, definitely pick up that audiobook for that and the sequel, Devil in the Dark.
Anytime like sound effects or like full cast narration are mentioned, I am immediately like, throw out the physical book. I don't care. Like, yes, it's so cool.
And as far as I know, Shannon has tried to keep the audiobooks for both of them under like $15 USD. I think on Kobo they're like $10. They're also on Kobo Plus. So if you have Kobo Plus for the audiobook subscription, then they're on there.
That's actually wild because most audiobooks are like $30-something.
They're wild,
so expensive. So expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I need to like research it more, but I found a librarian recently on TikTok, and she shares things that like you wouldn't know unless you're a librarian. But she was talking about how, so when a library buys a book, it's more expensive than a regular book, which I knew that. I knew that they have to pay like a premium price, but I did not know with audiobooks and ebooks, they don't just buy a copy and get to have it forever. There is literally like a use count. So, and it's based on how many times you check it out. It's not like how many times it's actually read, it's how many times that audiobook or ebook is checked out. And then I never knew that. And then now I have like the worst guilt because like I definitely like request books sometimes and like let them expire. And so now I'm like, okay, I'm only gonna really request the book if I know I'm gonna read it soon. And like I like have this like really bad like guilt about it now. And so I'm like being much more careful. But I didn't realize that. No, speaking of audiobooks.
Yeah. Sorry, I just looked at Devil in the Dark on Kobo to see how much it is for just to buy it outright. And it's $19 Canadian, so around $15 USD, which
that's a good price for an audiobook. Especially
great,
when it's like
yeah, and the audiobook for the second one is like 10 hours, and the first one is 7.5. I don't know how much this one is because I bought it, so I don't see the price anymore.
It's free. To you. Just to you now.
Yes.
Free now. Girl math. That's funny. Okay. Let me see. Let's talk about the challenge a little bit more and then we'll go back to reading. Okay. So I was thinking, have you picked for next month, or do we want to talk about like maybe a favorite or two we've read in the past? Maybe let's do a favorite or two we've read from a previous prompt. I think that's easier because I haven't picked next month yet.
Yeah, I don't think I've looked at next month. I just know it has to do with queer and indie. That's all.
Yeah, we can read them. Let's read the prompts so you know what's coming for June. Okay, June prompt A, a book by a BIPOC queer author. June prompt B, a book by a BIPOC indie author. Ooh, that'll be interesting. June prompt C is a novella by a BIPOC author. I don't read a lot of novellas. See, I really like how crafty they got with these prompts. Like they're really all over the place in the best way. Like you have to get out of your comfort zone with these. Like you can't really just read one genre and like apply it to all of them. I feel like it would be really hard. It's cool. All right.
Yeah, I don't know if I said this. I don't think I said this last time, but for this challenge, like I've been, whenever I do finish a book and I can put it into one of the categories or like one of the prompts, even if it's not in the month, then I'll add it. But then when that month hits, even if I've completed that challenge, I like to go back and even still read. So like for this month, I already finished a book for, what was it, A? I've already read 3 other books that fit with prompt A, but I'm still reading more this month because I like to do that. I like to read more than is necessary.
Classic overachiever mode.
I know that a lot of mood readers have been doing like just 3 every month, so it's not following the exact prompts, which that's also another good idea if you're a mood reader. Like I'm a mood reader, but at the same time, it doesn't matter that much.
Or like maybe if you're trying to read like a series or like I was saying, like a particular author or something like that, you could pick like 3 under one prompt and have that be your month. Like it's one of those things where it's like I feel like if you do the main intention of the challenge, you're doing it right. But at the end of the day, like it's your reading goals, it's your reading challenges. Like we're not here to actually tell you what to do, and nobody else can tell you either. You know, like do it how it works for you. Yeah. Anyway. All right, let's pick out like a book we enjoyed from a previous prompt. Let's see. I'm scrolling back. Ooh, okay. I got mine. For March prompt B, it was a book by an Indigenous author. I know I talked about this one last time, but I finished it now. And that's Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. Is that how you say it? Do you know?
I can't remember. I
I feel
know
like
that someone told
time,
us how we're supposed to
yes.
pronounce it, but I don't remember.
And I listened to the audiobook, so I should know. But I'm gonna look it up after this. I'll write it down. But the audiobook was super cool. So I was super excited that I was able to talk to other people in the challenge who had already read it because they were the ones who said do the audiobook. Because it's written by an Indigenous author, there's like actually words in their native language in the book. And I'm never going to know how to say those. I don't even know how to say her last name clearly. So, like, I'm going to need a little bit of a helping hand there. And I felt like it added so much more. That book also has really good narrators as well. And I felt like it's a bit of a sad book, but sometimes like you kind of want like a sad book and you kind of want to like dwell in the feels and feel the feelings and it's important. And I feel like the audiobook really helped with that. Like it really like I just like kind of sat there and I was just like, "Oh my god," you know? Like I'm still thinking about it and I usually like read a book, move on, I'm over it, you know? But I'm still thinking about that one. It's super good.
Yeah, that's one I really do need to get to. I've owned it for how many years now? Whenever it came out, I think I bought it.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually did have the audiobook at one time on Libby, and then I don't know. I started it, and then at that time I wasn't looking for like it's more. Well, is it like a mystery thriller kind of thing?
Yes. So the
Yeah.
cover to me did not give me any of the vibes that that book is actually about. Like the cover is gorgeous and I've always loved that cover, but like I thought like just even the way people were talking about it that it was entirely different than what it is. But it's young adult, it's super emotional. It's about hockey, but it's also about drugs, but it also has a mystery. Like that none of that to me looks like that cover. So I feel like it just like you never know where that book is going to go. Like it's a little bit of a wild ride, but in a good way. But it's I don't know. I haven't read anything like it. It's super good.
I know I started reading this last time, but it was A Mind Spread Out on the Ground by Alicia Elliott.
Mm-hmm.
I think also Brittany read it after, and we both say it should be required reading for everybody because it was that good. It's nonfiction essays, I think, and it's like a mix between. It is like set in essays, but it's also like part memoir because Alicia's talking about her life in it. So it's not like a traditional memoir when you think of that, or like an autobiography.
Mm-hmm.
It's set in essays. So each essay has a different topic that she talks about, and then she brings in her life into it. So she's talking about her experience as a young Indigenous, um, white passing person, I think is what she tries to describe herself as.
Mm.
Um, so it was really good. I also want to point out another one. I'm trying to find it. It's also by an Indigenous author. Here it is. This is another essay slash memoir in the same type of thing. Thunder Song. Oh my god, you can't see it, but it's by Sasha Lapointe. And if you can read that one, do the audiobook because there's a lot of what is it? I can't remember what the indigenous language is in it, but she narrates it herself, and she talks obviously the words in it, so you know how to pronounce them, even though you're probably not going to pronounce them now, but you know how to pronounce them if you need to.
Yeah.
Highly recommend both of those books.
You know, essays are underrated. Like
They
those are
are.
some of those books where like I'm not gonna lie, like on on paper, but on paper, like they seem objectively kind of boring. And it's not something for me that like entices me to want to pick it up. But I've maybe read 4 or 5, not a lot. But every time I did, I was like, oh, this is really enjoyable. This was really interesting. And I feel like so often people gripe about like long chapters. Like essay books never have long chapters. You get
Yeah.
like these little bite-sized stories. And they're always relatively short books in my experience too, for like, or I should say like not always, but generally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something I
Yeah.
would like to
Like
read.
another essay one I read, I'll also say it, is Disability Visibility.
I did the audiobook of that one forever ago.
I also did the audiobook this time. And I want to read, what's this? There's a second one out, Disability Intimacy. That's the one I have on Spotify, which I obviously forgot that Canada got audiobooks on Spotify now. But I saw that on Spotify and was like, you know what? I should read that now.
I forget. I need to take advantage of the Spotify thing because it's a Spotify like premium thing.
Yeah.
But
I think at least in Canada, you get 15 free hours.
I was gonna say that's what I think the American one is. I think
Yeah.
it's 15. So you just have to like do your checks beforehand to make sure your audiobook isn't over 15 hours because that's gonna be extremely annoying.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like a really good planner. I don't know if it like rolls over, probably, but like maybe you could do like if it's 16 hours, then you get your next hour next month and then pick a shorter book. Like you could do that, but I wouldn't like, I think that would bother me.
Mm-hmm.
I should check how long Yellow Face is. Now that it's probably longer than 15 hours. Let's see. But now I want to know since my library hold is taking so long. All right, and then after this, we will read for like the next 30, and then we'll be done. We'll say goodbye. Oh my gosh, computer. All right. My computer's being slow. I don't know. The tab's open. I'll remember to check. Cool. Well, back at it. Read a little more. Cool. If you're just joining us, let us know what you're reading in the chat and go follow Reese. And we'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay. We did it. We did the books. We did the booking. I finished at page 92. So, pretty good. I'm probably gonna keep reading, honestly, right now, because for me it's only 8, but I I was like, I have a few things to wrap up, get ready for bed, but I'm very, very much invested. How about you?
I got to chapter 8, page I think 75.
Mm.
And these fucking chapters, they keep ending on cliffhangers. And then it switches to a new POV. It's that type of book.
See, I like it's so much fun, but it also can be like incredibly, incredibly frustrating when you have like
Yeah.
things to do or you need to go to bed and you're just like, okay, well, does it have like characters you don't really care about, or would you say you care about most of them?
Um, right now, I think there's only one that I don't really care for, and that's because um, I don't really remember her character in the first book.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw me, but I was like looking at my phone because I have a synopsis or like a, what do they call it? A recap of the first book because I found out I actually forgot some things and I literally just read it earlier this month. And I was like, oh, I forgot that. Or like one
Is
of the
there
characters,
is it like did you just find a specific person's post, or is there like a recap website?
I found a website,
That's cool.
Recaptins. I don't know. I just searched up the Bone Star Daughter recap, and this was the first one, and it has like bullet points of like the most important things that's happened in the first book, and I was like, that
Okay,
is
I
so
need that
handy.
for fantasy. That's genius.
Yeah, they have a lot. It looks like, but like one of the points in the first book, I completely forgot, and it's a major plot point. It was like, wow, okay,
Oh, okay. That makes more sense now.
yeah,
That's funny. Ah, ay, ay, ay. Well, this was fun. It's only May, so we're only at the beginning here. Um, the month of July, I am traveling, so I definitely won't be hosting one. But my goal is to try to put one of these a month wherever I can squeeze it in. I mean, I'm reading them anyways. Why not
hmm
read together? Is kind of the way I think about it. But if you're someone who's watching this in the future or your current time, DM me if you're interested in joining in because it's an open thing. Like people can join in anytime. And like I said, we'll be doing it all year. So yay. Let's take a quick pick with our books for our bookstagrams.
yes. Let me put it right there.
It's like, where do I?
I know.
Okay, I'm just gonna whatever. It has books on it. It's cute. Let's just figure out how. Okay, here we go. All right, I think I got it. Cool, cool. Well, thank you, Reese, for hanging out. It's always fun hanging out with you, and I always appreciate you.
hmm Very fun.
Yes, good times as always. Well, I'll see you online and have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your book. I hope your memory comes
Yeah.
back and it's all making sense. All right.
Hopefully.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
See ya.